Imagine that you're at a family gathering. You're around a table, eating food, drinking drinks, when all of a sudden the family friction starts to bubble up. You might be getting questions like, when are you getting married? When are you going to have a baby? Or hearing things like, you look a little bloated. Have you put on weight? As you imagine this, notice what's happening for you mentally, physically, energetically, and emotionally. As you imagine it, you might even be starting to have memories of some holiday gatherings in your past that didn't go as well as you wished or hoped they would have. And as you're imagining or looking back over your life, notice, what voice are you using with your family? Is it the same one you use with your closest friends, or is it different? Is it the same one as the one you use on a stage, or is it different? And then go ahead and give yourself a little shimmy shake and let that go. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Who we are and the challenges that we face on stage show some signs and symptoms in the rest of our lives. Our soul suckers, our inner protectors, our inner child, our inner teenagers, they're all still a part of us, wanting to take the wheel and do what they've always done. And the masks that we might wear that create our speaker alter egos sometimes rear their ugly heads. And they were most often born when we were younger with our families. So shining a light on how we are with our family can create a ripple effect of awareness and transformation throughout our lives onto the stage and back the other direction. That's where we're going to go more deeply today. Believe it or not, it is possible to feel present and empowered with family while remembering what matters to us. Before I dive in, I'm going to share a little with you about what led me to include this as an episode. Most of my work is public speaking faced, from TikToks to TED Talks and anything and everything in between for the past 16, almost 17 years in our modern speaking landscape. And during that 16, almost 17 years, I would have clients come up to me and let me know that speaking on a stage was not always the moment where they felt the most on the spot or the most tempted to show up not authentically or feeling off. One of the non-speaking on the spot moments that kept coming back around and was staring me in the face for years was family and the holidays. So while I do help people speak soulfully when it counts from TikToks to TED Talks, this is a very important, fertile training ground for finding our voice everywhere, for speaking soulfully everywhere. Nearly 20 years ago now in graduate school, in our voice class, we were asked to do an assignment. We were asked to notice what voices we were using in different areas of our lives with different people in our lives, and to take notes. How do you talk when you're with your mother? How do you talk when you're with your sister? How do you speak when you're with your closest friends? How do you talk when you're leading a class? How do you talk when you're in this person's class versus that person's class? And when I did this myself, the thing that stood out to me the most was that I noticed that I was talking to my mother in a baby voice every time I talked to her on the phone. The first time I thought it was kind of cute and endearing, and it really truly was partially a sign of my love for her. And I couldn't believe that at the time, it was 20 years ago, I was 32 years old, I was talking to her in that baby voice during every single conversation. And then we were asked to take the homework a step further, or maybe I decided to do it on my own. I started to talk to her in the voice that I was talking in most of the other areas of my life, my full voice. And over the course of the next 10-ish years, the next decade, she became one of my closest friends. In addition to being my mother, we had deep, heartfelt, intimate, spiritual conversations. I would ask her for advice, and she also started asking me for advice, and I would blurt intuitive things. I spoke about this a bit in an episode a while back, that the final Christmas that we had together, I did not know, of course, it would be our final Christmas, was probably our most magical and connected. And after recording that episode, I got another intuitive whisper to do another relationship-focused episode in the hopes that you'll be able to connect more deeply with all of your family members that are still here with you. What I'd love for you to be able to do is to speak soulfully and show up as the wise, creative, loving adult that you are today in every single corner of your life. And that will unleash another layer of your soulful presence on the stage. And in order to do that, we first have to release our soul suckers from being the part of us that is in charge. Our soul suckers want to protect us from change, transformation, and vulnerability. And the fun thing about them at the holidays, fun or interesting, is that they kind of only remember the way we were the last time we showed up with family. And it's like a game of telephone in a way. So we may have changed and transformed and become comfortable with the empowered, powerful selves that we are now. But when we go back in with family, the soul suckers know that we have not shown up with family like that. Or they're afraid that our family may not be used to that version of ourselves yet. Some soul suckers that may not have even come out in a very long time might come out and start going to old habits with family. The soul suckers tend to have a theme of not enough. So they may tell us that we're not enough to handle our family. They may turn outward toward the family and start noticing everything about how everyone and everything around us is not enough. Our mother isn't enough. Our brother isn't enough. The food isn't enough. The table settings aren't enough. They're looking for any way to focus on things that seem more comfortable to them. And a great strategy is to witness them, hear them, and then release them from the responsibility of being in charge of how we show up with the family. Family soul suckers are full of a lot of assumptions and fears about how things are going to go when we're with the family. When is my mother going to turn and drop the "you look a little bloated, are you overweight" bomb? They're doing this probably based on all their past evidence, all the past experiences. They've gathered a lot of examples of how our other family members show up, and they're bracing and trying to avoid the possible landmines and being prepared for how to retaliate when those landmines occur. They believe that those landmines are a given. They're actually not. They're scanning and being hyper vigilant. The catch-22 is that because we show up in the old way, we invite the family to show up in the old way also. In a system like a family or a group, somebody needs to change. Something needs to change in order to invite the possibility that others might change with us. And when our family soul suckers are in charge, we assume the worst. We try to avoid the landmines or arm ourselves to attack should one of those go off, or we walk on eggshells. And how we take those actions, how we respond, is full of the old habits mentally, physically, vocally, energetically. Like our 5-year-old self takes over, or our 16-year-old self takes over. rather than the wise, powerful, and empowered adult that we are now responding. So, how we can get past that is to hear some of the parts of ourselves, release the soul suckers and all of our parts from being in charge, and choose to show up the way we are now. So take a moment now and ask yourself, and you can pause the podcast if you want more time to reflect. What is it that your soul suckers are trying to protect you from with your family? And after we hear their answer and release them, we can set an intention for how we actually want to show up. And one of the ways to do that is to ask yourself, what is important to you about the holidays? In my story a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that when I did this, I uncovered that connection and love were a couple of the things that are really important to me when I am with family. There's even another thing about winter and coziness for a lot of my favorite times to gather with family, which are around the holidays. It's about doing less and connecting even more. Feel free to pause the podcast and jot down what is important to you. What is it that you love? What do you want for yourself and your family when you gather with them? How would an ideal family gathering feel if, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it's the worst family gathering you've ever had, and 10 being it's the one that you hope for and aim for and invite? How would it feel? And go ahead and jot some notes. What you may be noticing in answering these questions is that you're seeing your values. Values are like fingerprints. When we distill down the things that are important to us to one word or a short phrase, we uncover our unique set of values, and then we can set an intention to honor those, set an intention to honor love or connection or whatever it is that is important to you. Now I'm going to ask you, if you're not driving, to close your eyes and imagine something. If you are driving, do your best while driving to imagine these things. Imagine yourself standing in a very dimly lit room with a couple of windows, 3 windows. And the light is coming in through the windows. And as it does, you're able to see the silhouette of 3 people, 1 standing in front of each of these windows. Go ahead and zero in on the first person. And this first person that you're taking in the silhouette of from behind is actually your 5-year-old self. At first, you're seeing the silhouette of your 5-year-old self from the back. Notice the shape of your 5-year-old self. How are you today different from this 5-year-old self? And how might you still stand in similar ways? And then invite your 5-year-old self to turn to you and take a moment to connect with each other. And as you connect, your 5-year-old self shares with you, either silently or through words, anything that is scary or intimidating or nervous about when it comes to being with your family. And then take a moment and thank your 5-year-old self for everything that he or she did to protect you, to keep you safe, to help you navigate your family and all of their quirks and deeper troubles back then. Thank your 5-year-old self for doing what it needed to do, what he or she needed to do to survive. And then go ahead and invite your 5-year-old self inside of you to literally step inside and join you inside of the you that you are today. Let them know that they can be safe. They can help you, and they can also be helped by you. Your inner 5-year-old may be incredibly creative and capable of being deeply present in the moment. And the wise adult you takes responsibility for setting that intention and for protecting your 5-year-old self from here on out, and for navigating as the wise adult the situations that you will encounter. And then go ahead and turn your attention to the second silhouette standing in front of the window. And this silhouette is your 14-year-old self, your young teenage self. Notice how your young teenager stands as you look at their silhouette from the back. Notice how they might be similar to your inner child and different, similar to the adult that you are now or different. And then go ahead and invite your teenage self to turn and face you. And invite your teenage self to take a moment and share with you energetically, or possibly even with words, what it is that he or she is nervous about, on the lookout for, or afraid of. What are all the possible things that might go wrong? What are the things that your teenage self had to protect you from back when you were younger? And again, take a moment to express your gratitude to the teenage you for going through everything that they did in the way that they knew how in order to survive and to lead to where you are now today. And then invite your teenage self to step inside of you. Feel the strength, the rebelliousness, the teenage drive and energy, and allow your teenage self to be there inside of you without the responsibility of being in charge. And then go ahead and turn and notice the final silhouette in front of the final window. And this is an ally of yours. Any ally that comes to you, someone that you know intimately or you've admired from afar, somebody who is still living and walking this earth, or someone who may have passed on, someone that helps to support you as you think of them and bring you back home to the most courageous, strong, grounded, peaceful, empowered version of yourself. It could be a relative who used to make the family gatherings easier. And then ask this ally for their wisdom, their guidance, anything that they want to share with you that might help and support you. And the ally may communicate to you in words or in feelings and energy. Go ahead and breathe all of that in. And now imagine that this person, this entity, stands behind you with a hand on the backside of your heart. And now imagine that you, with the support of this ally, are walking into a family gathering. You've set an intention for how you want to show up and what you want to invite in others. You have the support of your ally and all of the gifts and the love and the spunk of your teenage self. Those live and exist inside of you. And notice how this feels different. See yourself with the family around the table, with the food and the drinks and the questions. Notice what's different mentally, physically, energetically, and emotionally. And then, if your eyes were closed, go ahead and open your eyes. After we've set an intention to honor what's important to us, we align our body, our breath, and our energy. You can take a moment when you're with family to align your body, your breath, and your energy to how it might be feeling right now. Open-hearted, radiating the energy, holding the space in the space as if you're hugging it to join you in the intention that you set. Breathing deeper, more nourishing breaths, energizing yourself and the space. And it's like you are pouring Easter egg dye into the space. And if the Easter egg dye that you chose was pure white light, and the rest of the energy in the space is kind of a mucky, dark brown, the space will potentially not get all the way to white. Maybe it will. It definitely will not stay the dark, mucky, cloudy brown. When you're pouring your white into it, it will lighten and it will shift. How you're doing that is holding the space, hugging the space, and extending an invitation underneath the words for them to join you in that intention that you've set. Probably the greatest gift that we can give anyone, including each other, with family, potentially over the holidays, is the gift of our presence. And you don't have to do anything. The right thing is simply showing up as you and connecting with people and inviting them to join you in true presence. Intend, align, invite. So my challenge to you, or my requests of you as we end today, is to notice your voice throughout your life. How are you with your closest friends? How are you with your family? How might you be holding back or showing up differently with your family? And then maybe shift it in your life. And then ponder, how might those older versions of you, your inner child, your inner teenager, your soul suckers, the masked up version of you, how might that be sneaking into your presence on a stage or on a video? Sit in these inquiries. It's winter now. It's a great time to feel into these things and to let them go. Anything that no longer serves, let it go as you cross into the new year. I would love to hear how it goes. This is my calling, my purpose. I love these conversations. If you're on YouTube watching this, drop a message in the comments. If you're listening on a traditional podcast platform, look for the Send Lauri a Message link in the episode description and send me a message and share how this goes. I would love to hear. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.